First and foremost, welcome to the 2021 Poverty Solutions Summit breakout session for the Community Controlled Initiatives track. Here we're going to review exactly how folks can get involved in some of these initiatives in South Florida. I'm honored and delighted to be here and be part of another panel this weekend. I've also been very inspired throughout the last 3 days of the conference. There's been just so much passion and vigor, both on the side of our speakers and our audience. And I think just like as a personal point of reflection, we're still in the midst of a global pandemic, one that has made everyday life more precarious and that has further divided us really into economic subclasses where the ability to work from home is essentially a life or death privilege. And so it's really motivating that so many people over the last few days have wanted to get organized and in ways that prioritize the relationships of care and cooperation and community that so many incredible speakers and audience members have been discussing over the last few days. And that's what we're here to do today, right? Is figure out exactly how to do that, how to get organized in that way. So as I mentioned, again, over the last 2.5 days now, we've been discussing quite a few different efforts that we're calling community controlled initiatives. And these are all community owned and governed economic structures that show that we can move past an economy that prioritizes infinite growth, at the expense of the environment and the exploitation of, indigenous, Black, brown, and cash poor folks. And that we can move past an economy that prioritizes, right? That prioritizes the rights and privileges of those who already hold and wield capital, and instead redefine what economic development means. The notion that communities are agents and not subjects of that development. And that development also refers to individual development, in the form of community capacity building. And that development should enhance democracy, and that development can be sustainable, right? By creating structures that responsibly steward instead of dominate our natural resources. So with that said, we went over 4 particular types of structures. The first, being worker co-ops. Worker co-ops are businesses that are owned and democratically governed by the people who work there. We went over community land trusts. And community land trusts provide folks with the chance to own a home by financing the purchase of sort of the actual structure, while a nonprofit organization legally owns and stewards the land beneath it, taking these developments off the speculative market and keeping values under control. This model is also being adapted more frequently, by the way, for commercial property as well. And one of our esteemed guests today can discuss that in a few minutes. We discussed community energy, which is almost more of an umbrella category that can take many forms. But it's, at the root of it is giving more agency to community over whether it's the energy grid or the creation of energy cooperatives, but also community owned and governed solar, wind, geothermal, or small scale hydropower, solar gardens, wind farms, et cetera, so that members of the community can share the benefits of these resources, these renewable resources. And lastly, we went over public banking, which are essentially chartered state or municipal owned banks in which public funds are deposited. They're also mandated, though, to serve a public mission that reflects the values and the needs of the communities that the public bank represents. And typically, these are structured in a way that community members govern the bank by sitting on its board of directors, whether in whole or in substantially large part. So we can think of the public bank almost as access to capital for the structures we've been discussing. So the goal of today's panel is to have a discussion about some of these local initiatives, these advocacy efforts and campaigns that are already underway here in South Florida, how we can support them, and maybe even dream a little bit about what else we can create locally. Before I introduce our first guest, I want to note that people can sign up for to learn more or to get involved in any of these through a link that we should have in the chat. I don't know if we have it yet. But we will be posting it momentarily, and there will be an opportunity to click on whatever particular initiative you're interested in. So I'll begin. What we plan to do is introduce each guest, And then, everyone, the particular guest can describe the initiatives that they're involved in and how folks can get involved. And then we'll leave a little bit of space for members of the audience, members who are here, right, to be able to chime in, ask questions, make comments, etc. With that, I'll begin with Charles Dabney. Charles, it's very good to see you, as I was saying earlier. And we were hoping you can speak a little bit to South Florida CLT and what's going on. And we heard a little bit from Mandy yesterday, but maybe hear what's going on from you and how folks can get involved.
Well, certainly. I'm glad to be with all of you all. I'm Charles Dabney, Director of Real Estate Development for the South Florida Community Land Trust. We are a regional land trust. We were birthed in Broward County, but our illustrious new mayor of Miami-Dade County has been a longtime advocate of community land trust, saw the value of the community land trust as an important toolkit, a tool in the toolkit for addressing the challenges that we're facing in Miami-Dade County, and was a large part of our coming to Miami-Dade County, a huge advocate of community land trust. We've been around for 15 years, and during that time, we've developed about 69 units of permanently affordable housing using the community land trust model, a mix of both rental and home ownership. We have to date done about 56 units of rental housing and about 13 units of home ownership. And the community land trust model has some very unique features. It was really rooted back about 50 years ago. It has its founding with sharecroppers in Georgia, looking to find a way to exercise their voting rights in an environment where they were being threatened to be displaced from the land they were leasing because they were exercising their right to vote. And they collectively came together, leveraged their collective resources and the collective power of ownership. And that was the start of the community land trust. And this has been used for 50 years to preserve affordability, to create home ownership, to create permanently affordable rental housing. And in many cases, some of our colleagues are using it to ebb the flow, the loss of businesses from communities. We're finding that community land trust can be a very vital tool. And the basic premise is that by separating the ownership of the land from the ownership of the improvements on the land, by removing the cost of the land from the ownership of the improvements, you can significantly reduce the cost to, in this case, the homeowner, but you can, through the community land trust itself, permanently control what happens to the improvements on the land. Community land trusts are governed by community stakeholders, by people like you and me, who through membership, through their active leadership on the board, are interested in most cases, one mission in mind: preserving and maintaining affordability in communities that are losing it. In neighborhoods like Little Haiti, Alapata, and you're going to hear more about that from my colleague Maleka, Overtown, the West Grove, now Liberty City. We're losing the battle to gentrification, and people who have been long-term residents of these neighborhoods are very quickly being displaced. And a lot of that has to do with the cost of land and the shortage of land. And community land trusts create the perfect model for nonprofit organizations to preserve housing opportunities long-term for residents in neighborhoods who are being pushed out of those neighborhoods. So in our case, We are in Miami-Dade County. Recently, we purchased a piece of property in Little Haiti from one of our community partners, the Haitian American Community Development Corporation. And as a community land trust, we will own that piece of property in perpetuity. We are planning to develop a 13-unit affordable townhouse condominium development. And that development will be affordable to first-time homebuyers with incomes ranging from 60 to 100% of AMI. It will be affordable to people who are currently renting, people who realize that in Miami's housing market, with the cost of new housing in that general neighborhood starting at above $400,000, their incomes mean that they would likely not be in the housing market to begin with. So the notion of a community land trust home with a shared equity model creates an opportunity for them to enter the home ownership market for the first time. It creates a pathway to home ownership. It creates a pathway to upward mobility. It creates a pathway to wealth building. And we often tell anyone who has the income, who has the wealth, who can participate in your typical fee simple housing market, if you can do it, do it. We don't encourage people who have those options and want to exercise those options to consider a community land trust model if it's not the best option for them. But for many people in places like Miami, where incomes are relatively low in relationship to the cost of housing, the community land trust model is the perfect opportunity for people who are locked in rental housing. So I know that we may have some questions about how that model works, how it benefits those who are seeking home ownership opportunities and have been locked out. But I don't want to go without mentioning the benefits in rental housing. When we first began to use low-income housing tax credits in the late 80s as a way to create affordable rental housing, it was such a great tool, and we created an abundance of rental housing, and that created housing for 15 years, affordable housing. And many of those investors who developed, and those developers who developed that housing, gave us an abundant supply of rental housing. And in that 15-year time frame, many of those developments, those neighborhoods flourished over that 15-year period. And those developers elected to convert those affordable developments into market rate units. And it displaced an abundance of low and moderate income residents. And part of what we're now seeing in places like Florida is Florida Housing Finance Corporation is placing more restrictions and more burdens on the developers to keep those units more affordable long term. But we lose a lot of our rental stock each year, and we're not replacing that rental stock fast enough. So the community land trust model promotes long-term permanent ownership of rental housing as well. So when we invest in affordable rental housing, we do it with permanent affordability in mind. And in places like Alapata, Little Havana, Overtown, these neighborhoods that are quickly gentrifying and evolving, it's important to preserve an affordable rental housing stock as well, so that people who work in those neighborhoods can live in those neighborhoods. People who service the restaurants and the economies that keep those neighborhoods thriving have access to housing, rental housing in those neighborhoods as well. So the community land trust model is a perfect model to promote not just home ownership, but a variety of rental housing options in our neighborhoods. Any questions?
And in the meantime, also, Charles, if you can let us know what ways folks can get involved, that would also be really wonderful.
Well, a lot of community land trusts are indeed membership organizations. So we certainly encourage your membership. We also thrive off of volunteerism. So if there are people who are looking, if you have a unique talent, particularly if you are all nonprofit organizations like people with fundraising skills. So if you are savvy at fundraising, proposal writing, those skills are always appreciated. But of course, if you are a faith-based organization, we have an initiative where we seek to partner with faith-based organizations. Many faith-based organizations are major landowners, but they are not developers, and they're seeking to do good in their neighborhoods. So I think there's a perfect opportunity to join forces and to create partnerships that benefit both the faith-based organization as well as the CLT and the community. So I think those are opportunities for partnerships as well.
And Charles, I don't know if you noticed, there is a question in the chat from Hannah. Hannah, I don't know if you would be willing to take yourself off mute and ask the question so that everybody can hear it.
Yeah, absolutely. Can you hear me all right?
Sure, Hannah.
Okay, great. I wanted to ask if CLTs promote or have any like high levels of collaboration with city planners in a way to promote density as well, because I know not only is housing availability an issue, but kind of building a downtown more effectively or building places that create real community is often kind of seen as an amenity instead of a necessity. And so I wanted to ask if there's any sort of work with that in the CLT community, or how you can promote affordable density in areas to build community as well, if that makes sense.
I think it makes absolute sense. And I think whenever we have a site, we seek to do that. I think the small site that we purchased in Little Haiti is a perfect example of that. It was a site where we worked very hard to maximize the density to be able to get 13 units on that site. I think we appreciate and respect the value of a good planner. We have an urban planner on our staff, and we have a city urban planner serving on our Miami-Dade Real Estate Development Committee, along with Malika, who also serves on that committee. So we engage people from the community to serve on our committees, and we seek that kind of expertise to serve on our committee, so that when we're looking at sites, whether they're small community sites or large sites, we look at it through the lens of a planner. We look at how we can take that site and better integrate the community's vision into what we put there. We look at density and maximizing the density. And I mean, you have to. When you look at the cost of land in Miami, one, we need the units, and two, we can't afford to not maximize the density when you look at land cost. And I think you have to do that in a responsible way, of course, so that whatever you design, you're designing in a way that respects the community that you're placing the building in. So you have to do responsible design, responsible development. But let's face it, Miami 21 is encouraging us to become a more dense urban environment. We're one of the fastest growing cities in the United States. We're not increasing the space in which we're operating in. So we have to think smarter about how we're using that space.
Thank you so much.
And next, I also wanted to invite Mary Lisbon, who sits on the board of SMASH and other community land trusts, to keep the community land trust conversation going for a bit, and to also let folks know how they can get involved with SMASH.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Mary V. Lisbon, and I'm a board member of SMASH. And SMASH stands for the Struggle for Miami, Affordable and Sustainable Housing. my brother Charles has done a great job of giving you a little bit of the history of community land trust and, and different things connected to land trust and how they can, there's a variety of kind of land trusts out there. SMASH basically is a grassroots organization, and we are specifically interested in the extremely low income community here in Miami. Now, if middle class people are being pushed out, it is clear to us that gentrification is happening to the lower income people who cannot find housing, are living in slumlord conditions, where they have mold on the ceilings, rat infested, roach infested, buildings are crumbling down around them, but it's all they can afford. And so we are seeing a real push for extremely low income people to be moved out. And we're talking about 30% and below, that, they're paying a lot of their income for housing. And so you have to decide between, so they choose slumlord situation because they can't afford medicine, food, transportation. They're working on that. We've been an organization now for a little over 6 years. And so we recently have purchased a property in Liberty City. And Liberty City is our base, but we looked at Overtown, Little Haiti, Little Havana, where the community is being pushed out. And we're really clear that Liberty City is going to be one of those areas that they're pushing out people because people are going to move in because of the whole environmental thing, that they're going to leave the shore. Liberty City is a great place to live during a hurricane. And so we're going to be seeing people, and we're already seeing, not we're seeing, it's already happening. But the property we own has a lot of liens. And even though the government may be supportive of community land trust in general, they aren't really great about supporting low income people. So it's been a struggle for us. So we would invite people to join us by getting on our advisory committee, becoming members, and it's a $30 membership. If you have expertise, not only in fundraising, as Charles has said, but if you're an architect, because we're looking to make sustainable housing for low income people that aren't slumlord conditions, something that they will be proud of and willing to, any of us would be willing to live in. So if you're an architect, if you're a lawyer, if you're a real estate agent who knows of property, whatever skills you have, if you're just down for the cause, we're the organization for you. So I'm hoping people would come and join us. Just go to smash.org and you can get on, see what we're doing. And we would love to have people join us in this endeavor. Thanks.
Thank you, Mary. Does anyone have any questions for Mary?
I absolutely love your work, Mary. I'm totally in love with SMASH.
Really?
Thanks.
All right, so I also just pasted the link for SMASH in the chat. I'll be placing South Florida CLT's webpage as well pretty soon. In the meantime, if nobody has any questions for Mary, then we can feel free to move on and ask Mileika Burgos Flores, who's ED of the Alapata Collaborative CDC, to let us know what the CDC is up to, particularly around a very similar use of the community land trust model, but through commercial property and community benefits agreements and the work that you've been doing with that. So please take it away.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the invite, Ahmed. And for those of you who don't know us, my name is Mileika Burgos, like he said, the Executive Director of the Alapata Collaborative CDC. We are a place-based initiative that uses the Main Street approach to serve and expand cultural authenticity, something that is very, beautiful in Miami. So one of the assets that we have that we need to do more. So we are very focused on expanding cultural authenticity and wealth building in our community. Our goal is to revitalize our commercial corridors as we mitigate displacement and climate gentrification pressures. Because as Mary mentioned, our communities of color, the ones that have been redlined and that, unfortunately have been in the worst part of the spectrum when it comes to housing, they are now they happen to lay in the highest grounds in Miami, and here we are trying to keep communities together and prevent that they become displaced by this climate gentrification and just gentrification and displacement in general. What I can tell you, Ahmed, and everyone here, is that when it comes to community-controlled initiatives, community land trust and resident engagement is not only a great start, but it's essential. I am part of the South Florida Community Land Trust. I love being part of that organization. I truly believe in everything that Mary and Charles are doing, and we just need a lot more of that. And that's why we need your support joining these organizations. You can join us, but we are a collaborative. If you help us by helping our partners as well. So I'll tell you what we're doing. We're doing three main things when it comes to this community controlled initiative. So number one, we are working on a community benefit agreement. It happened last year. We created a sample community benefit agreement for South Florida. It was a coalition of organizations that included Community Justice Project, it included Catalyst Miami, and many other organizations. And we put together that sample community benefit agreement, which we have made available in English, Spanish, and Creole. And our goal is to educate the community so they can reclaim their space on the development table. They should be at the forefront of community development and not an afterthought or a check mark for developers in the city, right? So we want to make sure that people understand what happened in Detroit or what happened in New York or what happened in Los Angeles and how did the community benefit from those very big developments, right? So that's one thing. The second thing that we're doing, and we're working with the community land trust and many others, is a commercial community land trust, because we always think of community land trust as residential and housing, and that's very needed. But the one thing that we don't realize is that in our communities of color, small business is a center of influence, a center of energy for everyone in the community. They're not just small businesses. They provide the resources, of whatever they're selling, but they're also a third space. They provide jobs, they provide income for that community, and they attract more people to come to those communities. So making sure that we have very stable community commercial corridors, it's important. What we want to do is create a commercial community land trust where, it's the same mindset of the residential model, but it's just so the storefront owners can own their storefront. Many of these businesses, especially in Alapata, they were paying, a feasible rent circa 2010. Today, that rent is doubled, if not tripled. And we just need, the only way that definitely hurts their bottom line, because if before you were taking X amount of dollars, you got to subtract every single time that rent goes up. So they need to be in control, and the way that they become in control is by becoming owners of their own storefront. So that's one of the things that we're doing. The other thing that we're doing is that we are part of the Public Land for Public Good Coalition. In that coalition, we are engaging residents and small business owners around the development of a public lot along 20th Street and 14th Avenue in the city of Miami. This is a GSA lot that they're trying to redevelop. The city of Miami is trying to redevelop. And what we are looking to do, and what we're advocating to them, is that it is crucial that resident and local business owners have their say in the process and what that development is going to be. And it's not something that should be in the RFP process, not for them to do an RFP and then ask the community after the fact. I think that before they even think about what can potentially go there, they need to ask the community, hey, we have 18.75 acres of land. What is the best way for the community to use it? And of course, we're not trying to put a pool in the cafeteria here. We want to make sure that this is not just whatever, we do this with professionals, and we do this in a way that everyone is included. So in that same basically what we're trying to do now is this community engagement around that lot. And this engagement is that we are implementing alongside our partners with Urban Impact Lab to begin the survey of the community. The survey is going to serve two purposes. First is getting the Alapata community insight on the life and local economy of the area, which will be presented to the city of Miami. And the second is to create awareness in the public and bring them into the Public Land for Public Good Coalition Miami, and the whole network and the project, so they can, because the Public Land for Public Good coalition extends beyond Alapata. It's like county-wide. So the survey is only the first step of several projects for engaging Alapata public around plots of land and Alapata residents and local businesses interested in participating in making sure that they're part of the transformation of the community, because this is the reality. Our communities are transforming before our eyes. If you think of, I just saw pictures, the University of Miami has a picture of like Northwest 2nd in 2018, 2014, and then 2017. And the difference is striking. So they're changing. And what we need to do is to make sure that we are at the table directing that change rather than things happening before our eyes. So how can you get involved? You can definitely go to our website, alapatacdc.org, and join our mailing list. Also, you can send us a message and say, I want to volunteer in this way, but I have like a little list for you. Number one, go to events, donate, support, volunteer with your time, talents, and treasure with us, but also with the CLT of South Florida, the South Florida CLT, with SMASH, with Catalyst, with Miami Worker Center, with Miami Homes for All, because these organizations and so many more, Sound Law, right? There's so many more organizations that are escaping my mind right now, but these are the organizations that are out there in different Miami, Florida Rising. There's so much going on out there that the best thing that you could do is join. Whether you join the Alapata Collaborative or any of the others, it doesn't matter. We just need to get a stronger voice. We cannot do anything. No one organization can do everything on their own. That's why we work in coalition to make sure that these measures happen. The second thing is that we are hiring a public ally, a community engagement coordinator. So that's another thing that you can go to the Public Ally website and check out, because that's one of the ways that you can join our team. Also, stay tuned for an Alapata Collaborative Fellowship. We're planning to train youth in the Alapata neighborhood, training them on civic engagement. We need to raise those voices, and we need to raise them in a way that they're very well prepared and knowledgeable about everything that's going on and how things work. The next thing that I can ask you to do is to please join the HEAL program at Catalyst, the CLEAR program at Catalyst. We need to build our knowledge. It's not just about getting out there and speaking out. You need to know what the hell you're saying. So that's why you join places like HEAL and CLEAR from Catalyst in order to make sure that you are well studied in the things that we are advocating for. The other thing that you can do is to keep your eye peeled for special area plans in the city of Miami. We are trying to repeal it. I don't think it's been repealed just yet, but advocate for the repeal of the special area plan. A special area plan is part of Miami 21. It allows you to get 9 acres of land. If you can accumulate 9 acres of land, you can then create your own, you can suggest your own basically zoning or, terms and so on. So it's something that doesn't help gentrifying communities. So advocate for that. Go to commission meetings. Understand what the hell your commissioner in the city and the county is up to. I think that we need that. They are there because we elected them, and we must hold them accountable. Last but not least, keep track of that Miami 21 zoning board. They're talking again, they're updating that. How are they, what are they doing? And we need to advocate for equitable development practices. The Miami 21 zoning code should be a community benefit agreement. If you are gonna come to Miami and build, these are the things that our community needs, plain and simple. So I don't know, I think that I gave you a few ideas on how you can get involved. please take action, because this is our city. And when I do this, this is not about, like, it's beyond us. It's beyond any of us and any of our organizations. This is about the future of our city and the place where we live in the future of our families at the end of the day. Thank you, Ahmed.
Well, thank you, Mileka. I have to say I'm honored to know the folks who are speaking here today and sharing different ways to get involved and so much amazing information generally. I want to remind folks to please ask questions, and if you want to either drop them in the chat, just get off mute at any point. Don't be shy, right? There's a lot of information being thrown out, quite a few opportunities being mentioned, a ton of links being pasted into the chat. So please, please, please feel free to interact and engage, and that's really what this space is here for. So with that, I'll be awkwardly silent for a couple of seconds to see if anyone's interested in speaking out. Well, at any rate, please, please, please feel free at any point. And I think especially for the next two folks who are used to being in spaces like these at Catalyst, I think that they're used to taking and fielding questions as we go. So with that said, I'm going to introduce Myra Cruz, who is an incredible sort of asset to the Catalyst family, who is going to discuss a little bit about how to get involved with some of the ideas that we've discussed over the last couple of days regarding community controlled energy, what that looks like, and other ways to get involved in current advocacy efforts now.
Awesome. Thanks, Ahmed, and thanks to all the speakers that came before. There's so many great things you can get involved in. So I'm the Climate Justice Director for Catalyst Miami, and also am the co-chair for the Clean Energy Working Group through the Miami Climate Alliance. So there's a lot of things going on when it comes to energy throughout the state and locally as well. So I'll kind of walk you through the different opportunities, and of course, let me know if you have any questions, or if I use jargon and you don't know what I'm talking about, please feel free to butt in, but I'll try to be good about that. So first, we've already mentioned Clear and Heal many times, but I'll do one more personal plug. It honestly is a great way to ground yourself on a lot of the issues that we've been talking about throughout the weekend. I'll especially pitch Clear right now because we do talk about climate change and energy and kind of go through the 101 of how that system looks like here. We have local activists who work on clean energy issues come and talk to you about what they're up to. So it's just a really great way to get plugged in. So I've already dropped the links in the chat. We also have Taylor, who is our leadership program coordinator on this session right now. So you can also chat her if you have any questions about that, but definitely recommend that. The second thing I would recommend is the Miami Climate Alliance. As I mentioned, I'm co-lead the Clean Energy Working Group with Mackenzie, who is with Florida Rising. We have been working a lot primarily around the disconnections that have been taking place throughout the state and in Miami. With the pandemic, people fell really behind with their electricity bills. It's been a huge issue and something that we're super concerned about. So at the basic level, yes, we want community control over our energy, but also people need their lights on. So it's important to also tackle that very immediate need. So that's something that we've been working on. This year, we're really focusing on passing a 100% clean energy resolution for Miami-Dade County. So that means talking through all these issues of like a just transition. What does it look like for Miami-Dade to go 100%? How do we ensure that community members most impacted by climate change and by our energy system are leading that effort and putting that together? So we definitely want you to help us in crafting this and working with our mayor and the other commissioners to make that a reality. A part of that, to keep on the community control aspect of it, we want to create an accountability task force. This hasn't really been done before, but we want community members, we want staff from our partner organizations that work on these issues and others to be a part of the task force that helps us to keep our local officials on track to actually make this 100% resolution a reality. We've seen a lot of cities pass these awesome resolutions, but then don't go anywhere when it comes to actually implementing this, or really fall short when it comes to doing this implementation in an equitable and just manner. So if we're going to do this, we want to do it right from the very beginning. So if that's of interest to you, please, please, please join the Miami Climate Alliance, join our calls. They're at 4 p.m. on Mondays. If that doesn't work for you, let me know. We're super open to changing the time. Couple other things I'll mention. If you're looking at things more from like the state perspective and want to know what's going on there, there's so much going on there and we could use your help. Right now, I know we've talked about the legislative session, it's going on right now. Unfortunately, we're seeing a huge attack on community energy specifically. So there's a number of bills that have been proposed that would make community energy really difficult, and that would take away power from local municipalities that are leading on this 100% clean energy effort. So there's a lot of bills that we need to kill in the next few months while session is going on. So if that's of interest to you, there's several coalitions that are working together to try to knock those bills out. So please, if you're interested, I know we have the sign up list that's come out. You can also just chat me. I will add you to those calls, but we really need to spread the word because that could be hugely detrimental to the work that we're trying to do. The last thing I'll mention is that we've talked about the Public Service Commission. If you were on those energy related sessions, we talked about how they are the ones that regulate our utilities. So they have an immense amount of power. And right now there's some hearings going on related to our energy efficiency standards. They're super, super low in Florida, like some of the worst in the country. So we're trying to work to improve those, and we need your help to call them and bombard them and let them know that we want to see energy efficiency here in the state. And we also have utilities that are trying to raise your bills in the future to recuperate their losses from the pandemic. Like we're speaking billions of dollars that FPL is trying to get back by charging you extra money on your bills very soon. So that will be coming up. We have a lot of fights. So I welcome all of you to join us, and please let me know if you have any questions.
Hi, Myra.
Hi, Rochelle.
How you doing?
I'm
Yes,
good.
I'm good. Yeah, my question is, I'm involved with direct services, so I run into a lot of clients that are struggling with the electricity bill. Sometimes almost half of their rent. I'm not kidding. So I've advised them to call FPL to come out and, check the meter or whatever they do on the outside to see if everything is being run correctly. And they come out, but the bills are still running high.
Mm-hmm.
And I try, I manage to refer them to community action agency for assistance, energy assistance, but you can only get it for so much. It's not an
Mm-hmm.
ongoing thing. You get it this month, then you can go back next month,
Yeah.
to get assistance again. So in terms of energy that I know clear involving climate change, energy, and so how should I convey them? What should I tell them that those that are expecting somewhat a more concrete solution to this problem? How should I tell them about energy the program that you run to convince them to come and be more engaged and stuff like that? I know I've referred some clients, but
Yes, and they're great.
especially yeah, especially those that are struggling with this problem. So
Yeah. No, that's a great question. And I'll say that oftentimes when you see those super high bills, it's because people live in older housing units, like if they live in an apartment or they own their home or are renting a home, it's older housing. So when you're thinking about like the windows and insulation, their housing is worse about that. So they're just leaking, their AC, for example. So, you end up paying more, a higher percentage of your income goes towards that. So for sure, like I just mentioned that the Public Service Commission is working on revising hopefully our energy efficiency standards. So what I would say is, let's talk, Rochelle. I want to talk to your clients that are going through that, and they should speak at the Public Service Commission hearings, because oftentimes we struggle to get community members who are being impacted by this to speak at those hearings so that they can put a face to this issue. Because that's a great way of getting directly involved right now.
Yeah.
And if we can improve the efficiency standards, put more money towards programs that can help people like your clients to afford the changes they need to improve, the weatherization of their homes and all of that, this is the time to do it, actually. So I really want to follow up with you. And I would say that for everyone, like if you're going through that, I can easily plug you into that work so you can speak and make sure your voice is heard, because our commissioners need to hear from you.
Thank you.
Let me know if any other questions come up.
All right. Well, if there are any more questions, of course, Myra will be here, or feel free to interrupt me or interrupt, I guess, anybody else, really. I don't know how many. Oh, well, there are two of us left. So next, I'll introduce Malcolm Cardona Spence, who's also at Catalyst Miami. He's going to discuss a little bit about our worker cooperative program, where we actually help folks start the businesses that I mentioned earlier, these businesses that are owned and governed by the people who work there. So with that, Malcolm, please feel free.
Great. Thank you, Ahmed. And thank you, everyone, for being here. It's been a great Poverty Solutions Summit thus far. We're getting close to the closing remarks with Andre Perry, so keep it a little bit short. But just to kind of recap some of the ideals that have been spread across this whole summit, and some of the focus on the power we can create together, brings us to the idea of worker cooperatives. And if you happen to catch the last session, the session yesterday, there was some great insight on what a cooperative is, and just real personal accounts of how it can be made, and even cooperatives that we're working with today. So just a little bit of a recap. A cooperative is a democratically controlled form of business. It's rooted in communities and education and transparency. The benefit of a co-op is that each worker is an owner in the entity, and this makes the process more inclusive. Everybody's more accountable in the process. It's more participatory, and very consensus oriented. All the decisions that are being made by the co-op are made by the worker owners. So rather than someone dictating how the profits are spent and focusing heavy on that bottom line, in a co-op, there's really a triple bottom line. So because there's so many individuals that have a say over how the business is run and operated, you have the social benefit aspect of the co-op, you have the environmental concern and impact of the co-op, as well as the profit for the owners, because ultimately we want to build wealth and have an equitable solution to the current structures of business. So in order to get involved, as there's been mentioned earlier, there's different processes that Catalyst hosts. We have an academy that will begin March 18th. It'll be the second iteration. And this is a 12-week academy. And it'll basically give you way more in depth of what I've just touched on what a cooperative is, how it operates, how it's governed, and how you can create value and really get it off the ground. It's a 12-week program, and it'll teach you how to start a cooperative. And Catalyst doesn't plan to leave you in the dry. After the academy, or even if you're ready to go with a co-op idea and you've been set on it and you've really thought about it and you have your steering committee together, we have an incubator program as well. Applications are always open and rolling, and we are open to helping businesses that want to convert an existing business into a co-op, or even individuals that want to come together and create a new co-op. We also will have other ways to get engaged. We have a great team, which many of which are on this call, Julio Calderon, as well as Ahmed. well, we'll be having monthly meetings in addition to the academy, just for extra info sessions and extra ways to get in touch and support. Even if you just want to get involved in the space but don't know where to start, or maybe you want to join a co-op but don't have an idea of your own, this would be a great way to get more information. You can visit our website to stay up to date. It's catalystmiami.org/worker-owned enterprises. And for more information, you could always email myself directly, any of the staff of the team, and we'd be happy to help. So just to summarize, co-ops, they really build collective power because the resources in the business you're using democratically. It's really focused on the passion of the people involved. It's a great way to really focus that energy and power and take back some of the resources and be able to circulate that local economy. So with that, I'll leave room for any questions. Anybody who maybe missed on asking a question earlier, to any of the other great panelists. Just thank you for being a part of the Poverty Solution Summit.
I do have a question, actually. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Okay, so for the guests earlier that talked about the affordable housing and the neighborhoods, I'm wondering, are you guys giving thought to the fact that Miami is about to experience this huge tech boom? We have all these billionaires coming in to invest, but are we thinking about how do we avoid the negative impact that San Francisco has had in terms of rising inequality, a lot of homelessness? Are we thinking about a different approach besides the work that's already being done in terms of advocacy and et cetera? Any one of you can answer.
Yes, I can actually answer that question. I keep an avid tab on Twitter, and I see these interactions and these things, and sometimes it just blows my mind because I'm like, wow, what are they thinking? What about, like, we continue to have two Miamis, right? So what we have done is that we are part of a national coalition called NALCAP, National Association of Latino Community Asset Builders. I actually reached out to my colleagues in Seattle and in San Francisco, and I'm trying to speak with them to see if we can put together a panel to really understand how they were able to mitigate the changes that happened when Silicon Valley started and when the boom happened in Seattle and so on, because I think that we do want to welcome tech. However, we want to make sure that it's something that's happening in an equitable manner. I think that there's a few panels that have happened via Venture Cafe with Leanne Buchanan and also with Justin Penn, and they have a really good pulse in it, because if we welcome tech, we want to welcome tech responsibly. We want to welcome tech in a way that the community is at the table and that Miamians benefit from it. So as Mayor Suarez, Mayor Suarez says, Miami is for everyone. I think that Miami is for Miamians, and then everyone can come, but first Miamians.
I would echo Maleka's sentiments. I think one of the problems we have with Miami is that we're in a high cost market in large part because of the demand versus supply equation. People want to be here, but it also costs a lot to build here because of our building codes. But it's also a challenge because our economy is largely driven by a tourism sector, which by nature is defined by low wage jobs. So I think bringing in tech helps to create a level playing field. I think what we want to do is to make sure that people in our communities are prepared to be first in line for those opportunities. So we need to be busy preparing people for those positions rather than people coming from outside to take those positions. Miamians need to be prepared, and we need to be doing what is necessary to make sure that people in our neighborhoods are well trained to take on those positions and are the beneficiaries of them. so that they get to reap the benefits of a growing economy and can participate in it, so that they can afford the housing. So I think there are also best practices that we can learn from the Seattles of the world. There are policies that we can implement that represent best practices if we're brave enough and smart enough to do it. If you follow some of the work of Connect Capital Miami and some of the policies that were lifted up, there are things that we can do to better control the impacts of what happens in our housing microeconomy, just through good housing policy. Stuff like inclusionary housing policies, and just not allowing the development community to come in and take what it wants at the expense of Miami's residents. Public policy can help to drive some of this. So I would not discourage high tech. I think we position ourselves so that Miamians, people in our community, are the beneficiaries of that.
Yes, yes, definitely. And I was going to add something, but I know that we're almost out of time. So go ahead, Ahmed.
Yeah, sorry. No, I do want to be mindful of the fact that it's nearly 2 o'clock. And I wanted to very quickly, once more, just paste everything that we've gone over here in the chat. I just put up every link that was relevant to all of the programs and organizations that were discussed. In addition, that Google form link up top, I did also mention public banking and a way to get involved. So the way what we're proposing is for folks to sign up via that link. We'll be reaching out to folks who are interested in having a conversation around what a municipally owned bank can do to provide access to capital for all of the projects that we're mentioning here today, and how they are governed, specifically what is the role of community in governing them, and how they hold public funds and why that's so important. We also want to have a conversation around that. So anybody who's willing to be part of that conversation, please fill out that Google form up top. And if you want to get involved with any or all, preferably, of these organizations and projects, please click through or at least save all of the links that I just pasted in the chat. But I do want to thank everybody for coming out, for being a part of an incredible 2021 Poverty Solutions Summit. And definitely feel free to try to look any of us up. I don't know if speakers have a little bit of time to throw their contact information in the chat if they can, but I look forward to seeing everybody here involved in one of these efforts, right? Or in one of these spaces in the future, if I don't know you already. So thank you very much and enjoy the rest of your weekend.